I'm Johanna Lindsay. I am a jeweler, and by jeweler I don't mean I cut and saw and use fire. I mean I use beads of various sizes and a teeny tiny needle and some thread to make things. A long time ago, when I was about 8, I rode the bus all the way across the city with kids from, there were 2 schools worth of kids, and we rode the bus together, and the other school had a teacher that taught beading as one of their like after school craft activities. The other kids would bring it as contraband, so we'd give them our quarters, and we would get needles and beads and thread from the kids from the other school, and they would teach us on the bus how to do that. And so I started doing needle work with beads when I was probably like 7 or 8, and then I didn't touch it, beads or really anything, until college, when I picked it up again just as like a little bit of a hobby. Then I came back to Seattle and really kind of fell in love with wire working. And then I tried lamp working, which was super frustrating because we were working in a space with a shared kiln and things would crack. And then I met a teacher that was doing the bead making work, and I was really inspired by the forms that she was making. So I started to try to figure out, could I do that with a needle and thread? And so that's where a lot of my shapes came from, was this inspiration of the dots and the knobs and the fun little shapes that you can get with lamp work bead making. I didn't sell my work until a few years after I moved back here, and I made something for an auction for the nonprofit that I worked for, and people were so excited about it. I think it had a magnet clasp, and so they were really stoked about it, and ended up making a piece for her on commission. And I thought, well, that's kind of fun. So then I started doing it a little more seriously, and probably 8 or 10 years to really kind of hit my space, where the shapes and colors hit my kind of funny combination of like sort of mid-century meets the bright colors of the 80s, which is kind of my signature. Creating a successful art business is like, that's a hard question, because it's across artists who you don't want to leave your full-time job until you've really got it going. And the way that our markets go, you just never know if you want to take that flying leap. But I think to be successful in terms of getting your work out there and presenting it professionally, it's really digging in to understand like what are the expectations for like presenting and showing your work, what makes people comfortable coming into your booth space, how do you create that feeling that goes along with your work and that kind of engages folks. And yeah, a lot of it is about how do you create community around your work so that folks, even if they're not engaged with it now, in terms of bringing it into their own lives, maybe they enjoy it, maybe they make a recommendation, maybe they just come back and visit and you hear some little slice of their life that gives you inspiration for the next thing. But yeah, that's figuring out what makes your work connect, what makes it possible for people to connect with your work. So a lot of people think that jewelers are like, that we're cutthroat competing with each other, but the reality is we either share customers and we have these great like shared relationships with people where they'll come to see one of us and they realize the other one's there and they get all excited, and they'll come and show us, we'll get to see what the person bought from the other person. But there's actually a really strong community amongst the jewelers where we watch out for each other. You got your back, and you're kind of covered. Sometimes share sources, techniques. You could give us each a bag of goods and we would make something completely different just based on our aesthetics and skills and talents and style. What I like about jewelry is there really is that infinite variety. So you give us all the same stuff and we could make something different, but also the building blocks are there. It's almost like Lego. You've kind of got pieces that are already made for the work I do with beads, and it's how can I put this together in a different way? And then the world supply chain throw you a curveball and you can't get that thing anymore. And then you have to come up with a new way to make a thing that resonates both with you and with other people. And I have to like making it. Otherwise, it's not fun, and I don't want to send something out into the world that I don't enjoy making. I love that this gives me space for my brain to work in the way that it works. So I've learned that I am a puddler. So you'll see around my studio, it's pretty clean right now, but I have puddles of beads, puddles of bags of beads, puddles of projects, puddles of unfinished projects. And that's the way my brain works. So this is a good space for me to work in. So a lot of my inspiration is just color. I actually keep my keep my color wheel at hand so I can play when I'm, if I get stuck, I've got some options. I just love finding ways to put colors together and helping people kind of stretch their boundaries. So I do love, like right now I've been working with this wonderful orange and then a purpley pink color that it's pretty loud, and I was surprised people were delighted and excited with it at my last event. Color is definitely the driver behind what I'm working on. I've made a handful of pieces that were black and white, but really it's the color. I also have some things that I'm really picky about, like I don't like the thread to show. So finding ways to wrap the piece in more colors is always a big challenge to make sure that it feels finished, that you can't, like there to be a little secret. So if you don't know, you can't quite tell how I made that thing. And then I also really love the shape piece. So I try to create forms that are self-sustaining or self-supporting. So in typical flat peyote beadwork or some of the other bead weaving techniques, you just have like a sheet of beads. I like to work with the bigger beads. So there's like curves and bumps and textures, and that's probably the most frustrating part, is when those pieces don't fit together well. Sometimes they're a little too rustic, or the wrong number of sides, and things just literally don't click. And sometimes they do actually literally click together in place, and the whole thing just holds its structure, and it's very exciting. For me, the thing that actually just keeps me excited about doing the work is doing shows. A friend was just recently saying, she's like, I love that part where we load in and you hear the hustle and the bustle and like the clang of the metal parts dropping. It's like a family reunion. So as you get to know people and have those relationships, it's just really fun. A successful art business is like finding the right balance between trying to do everything and be out there at every place versus finding the places that are, make business sense, but also make personal sense that you enjoy being at. I have kind of a set number that I do. I try to experiment with one or two, and then I'm able to give time back too in terms of volunteering with some of our local arts events.